How come you don't ever see any videos about them online? Why don't you ever see long discussions with them online? Hi, it's Christophe Clugston, the Jedi Dog Master, and I'm going to talk about something that a lot of people ask me to talk about, as I've sort of mentioned something about them, and I call them the microwave dog trainers. And what do I mean by microwave? Does not mean frying the dogs, but what it does mean, a lot of people think that's what it means, but it means trying to rush instead of cooking them at the normal temperature. As an analogy, you're going to try to speed up the process by using a microwave. Now that works somewhat, but certain things cannot be rushed. What do I mean exactly? Well, these are the franchise. There's a lot of big franchises in the United States. I can mention names, but I think you can look them up, who tell you that they guarantee that they can train your dog in 3 weeks. Completely. Will be incredibly trained in 3 weeks. Well, here is the real dirt on all that. Number one, they'll do an assessment, is what they say. Some of them do it for free. Some of them don't charge much for the very first initial session. And that's an evaluation. Well, number one, they're doing this because they want to look at what type of dog you have. And they flat out will not train, because their method, they only use one method, and I'll get to that, won't work with many different hounds, and it won't work with sight hounds, guaranteed. They're not gonna, they'll just flat out say they can't train that type of dog. Yeah, they can't, because they don't have the ability to do that, because they're using one method, and I'm gonna get to that. So they look at that, then they also, some of them will ask you, where do you live? Do you own a house? Because they want to look at how much, they're really looking at how much income you have. It's the same thing that happens with martial arts for kids, or karate for kids, or however you want to put it. They're very precise in how they're targeting people, because they're looking for people that are affluent with a big disposable income. So that's one of the things, because they're going to charge you, if they do a board and train for 3 weeks, they're going to charge at least $3,000, some more. And you got a lot of people on the internet who charging, that are saying they're not charging that much, but they're charging more than that. They're not part of the franchise. So I'm talking about the franchises only. These people who are doing the training, a lot of them have just been indoctrinated in the method. A lot of them have to pay for the training. Sometimes they have a centralized location that they'll go to in the US, and they'll go through a classroom setting where they learn how to do all these things, like evaluate the dog, and the owners look for the money, of course, because that's what the bottom line is. If they're not going to help rescue dogs. They don't care about shelter dogs. They can say that in their advertising, that they'll do locally, but they won't do it. They won't do it internationally. And then this is what I'm getting to. So they use an e-collar, an electronic collar, from step one. They start out with it. They use it. And they also want to test the dog initially to see how the dog reacts to the electronic collar. Now, a lot of them have a deal worked out with different manufacturers, so they will sell you an electronic collar at the end of the 3 weeks, and they make money off of that, sort of like a mechanic, right? Supplying parts. They're also cashing in on the parts, not just the labor and whatnot. So that's one of their little tricks that they're going to do. And they're going to also tell you, because you cannot train a dog. Look, these people, and that's what I'm going to get to, cannot match me. They can't train the different types of dogs that I can. They can't do the Jedi Dog Master Challenge, and they run from that. They won't even do that. They'll say, we train pet dogs. Yeah, so do I, among others. So their methods don't create great dogs for anything other than trying to do sit down, recall, come to you, and probably go to place and leave it. That's how you can tell that they're a franchise. I mean, all the franchises, even the Petcos and the PetSmarts, they use this stupid term, leave it. Anyway, I talk about that in another video, so go look up my other videos. Not everything's right here. Do your work, do your research. It's all free information here, people. Free information, so put out the work, okay? Put out the energy, or you don't deserve any of it. Okay, I have to say that nowadays because I'm tired of it, people. This is not AI. You ask me a question and I provide it to you for nothing, you know. Do the research here on my own channel right here. Anyway, so the point is that they're trying to train dogs in 3 weeks, and they want to select the type of dogs that will put up with the type of training that they're doing, because they only know one method, and they're going to start out with the electronic collar. Now, people like McFarlane, she does this from step 1. It's a mistake. It's not good. It should be, when you use an electronic collar, you should know what you're doing, and that should be the last part of it, because using electronic collar, regardless of however they want to phrase it, we use it as to annoy the dog into performing. No, it's escape and avoidance training, part of negative reinforcement. For all the people who don't like the older methods that people use with a leash, it's the same thing. It's the same thing as corrections with a leash, but using an electronic collar. Yes, it works at a further distance, although they will train the dog very close to them. You won't see them doing what I do or Robert Weatherwax does with a 50-foot distance. That won't happen. You won't see that. So, yes, with escape and avoidance, you can make very fast progress with this. It doesn't work with all dogs, and there's a limitation. You can never train a dog to do movie work doing this. You can never train a dog to be a reliable military dog, and I mean, for example, scout dogs stuff. And for example, and you see me with a quarter-mile sit-stay recall, that can't be done by trying to use an e-collar, by training it with an e-collar. That will not work. Won't work, because I can do these things they can, and I can train dogs that they can't. I say that because that's one of the things that we say in our podcast. We know many different methods. They don't. These people, like I'm saying, are a lot of them are fairly young dog training. Ask them if they've been training dogs for 10 years or more. And 20 is my minimum for somebody who really knows what they're doing. Minimum of 20. I've been doing it 51. So yeah, good luck, juniors. You're not going to match me. So anyway, these people have gone, like I said, to a centralized location, and they've learned their methods, how to start out with the e-collar, and it's escape and avoidance. I know their method completely. Actually, part of this was done by one of the guys who helped out the monks of New Skeet. I forget his name offhand, but he is the one who introduced them to the e-collar, and then people started gravitating from that, and then started shortcutting and using it. But it's that same method, and that method, people saying, you know, old school methods and stuff. Well, escape and avoidance does work, but it shuts the dog down for learning more complex things, and it doesn't allow them to think on their own. And that's what a lot of pet dog owners, and they go after pet dog owners. They don't go after people who are trying to get obedience titles. They don't try to teach dogs for specific tasks. They can't. They don't know how. And some of them will say, we don't train dogs for detection. We don't train protection dogs. We don't train tracking dogs, because they can't. That method won't work. And here's what I'm getting to. They are very big in a locally. They will be well known locally. A lot of them, they spend advertising locally, radios or on the internet locally, but they don't want to be known nationally, really, because they will take flack. And if you see any videos of theirs on YouTube, like, they don't post stuff on YouTube except 30-40 second videos to show the owners, look, I got the dog to sit, I got the dog to recall, because they do not want to take the flack that they'll take, or the competition. They'll say, okay, that's your method, let's see you do it with this dog. Like, for the example, the switch limp for a dog over 100 pounds with no tail. They can't do that. They don't know, because they don't know the method. That's the wrong method. I don't need to do that. Yeah, but you'll never train movie dogs, you know? And so, and everyone trying to rush through, they want 3 weeks. Oh, my dogs, they're not stable. They're not reliable at 3 weeks using that method. They're not, regardless of what they say. And another thing that they do, a lot of them, is that for them, because they'll say, we guarantee that we will, train your dog again if the dog doesn't retain the information. Well, these are little tune-up things that they do. But they will only give this guarantee because the people have to sign a contract. It's like the martial arts thing, but a little even more insidious, because they say, you must leave us a 5-star review. 5-star review. So That's why they have these local things. Oh, they got 5-star reviews. They got 5-star reviews because they are trying to extort people into giving them a score. Number one, they want people to pay this enormous amount of money, that I consider an enormous amount of money, with trainers who don't have 10 years and plus experience, and with a lot of different types of dogs. All they know how to do is the same thing that they're doing. And they learned, most of them learned that recently, some of them like a week or two ago. And this is the big scam and big sham. Ask them why they don't put longer videos on YouTube. Ask them why they won't engage with anybody when they talk about on the internet about methods and performance and results. Why won't they? Because they will be torn apart, and their results will be shown not to be very good. Ask them why they don't want any dogs competing in any sort of dog sport. Why? Why is that? Because they aren't that good. This is these parasites that came into dog training from the 90s and started when the urban, I've explained this before, urban growth of people owning dogs started, and people have problems because they select the wrong dogs, or they don't want to spend any time with the dogs. It's not the dog's fault, it's the people who don't want to learn things. And this is a case of this. They don't want to learn how to train their dogs. They don't want to be taught how to train dogs, which is the older method people did in classes. They were learning how to train a dog. Well, they're going to classes with the dog, because you got to spend time with the dog, because ultimately you're the one living with your own dog, aren't you? It's not a remote control for the TV. Again, this is the tropical fish disease. Whole video on that. Go look it up on my channel. All right. So they're a scam. They're a sham. Ask them why they can't train certain dogs. Ask them why they cannot compete. And well, that's not what we do. We're only about pet dogs. You mean you're only about soaking the people who live in the suburbs and urban who know nothing about dogs? In reality, they know zero about dogs. They can't tell you one thing about different types of dogs. And they want to pick, golden doodles and poodles and certain German shepherds as the dogs they train, because they're easy to train comparatively across the spectrum. They're easy to train. And they will handle that escape avoidance training. They will. Try that with a greyhound. It won't work. Try it with a Southeast Asian village dog. Won't work. So, hey, giving you the truth, because again, as I said, one of the big things that I do, several things. I'm a motivator. I give inspiration to people. There are people who are now trying to do parts of the Jedi Dog Master Challenge. No one can do all three of the tasks. They can't. No one. That's why no one stepped up. $5,000. Step up. Take the chance. Put your money out. Let's see what you can do. You're going to lose. So that's what I do, but I'm also the Ralph Nader and the Kevin Samuels of the dog sphere. I've got people who block me, like Nate Schumer, because he's incorrect about what he talks about respondent conditioning. And instead of being corrected and learning they want to try to silence and cancel someone who's providing you with the actual information. That's what happens when you pretend to be an expert in things that you needed a university degree in at an academic level. I'm not saying he's a bad dog trainer, but he's off. He's not the only one. Michael Ellis doesn't know what he's saying either. Neither does Miracle Canine or a bunch of other people. They don't understand respondent conditioning and operant conditioning because they didn't have university degree. Yes, and you need it, because you're arguing for lowered standards. Oh, I could be a witch doctor and I can perform neurosurgery. No, you can't. And I'm saying that as it applies to the microwave dog trainers. We can train the dog in this and that. You don't know any other methods. And if your method won't work, you won't train the dog. Right there. What a great coach that is, right? I can only train one type of athlete. Only this one type of athlete can I train. Yeah, okay, so putting it right, setting it right, and not being popular, I don't give a good, goddamn about it. I'm here for the truth and for the dogs. And by the way, you can help out. There's a pinned comment in the very first comment underneath this video, so you can check that out.